Good day. My name is David Weil, and this is the Chapter 11 presentation on the subject of leadership from Connect Master Management 2.0. By the end of studying this chapter, you will be able to distinguish between leadership and management, to analyze power as an alternative or informal source of leadership, to classify the various sources of leadership, to analyze the role of leader behavior in influencing followers. You'll be able to evaluate leader behaviors for various situations based on follower and situational factors. You'll be able to identify various ways in which followers are involved in leadership. And finally, you'll be able to distinguish between three approaches to leadership development. So, we will begin with a fundamental question. What is leadership? Although many views exist of what leadership entails, most definitions of leadership refer to the use of power or influence to engage followers in a full range of activities that serve to accomplish the leader's vision and goals for the work unit, which a team or department or business unit or an entire organization. Now, let's take a few moments to distinguish between managers and leaders. To most people, the terms leadership and management may seem to be synonymous. However, as you can see in Table 1 displayed on your screen, these two terms are definitely not the same. In fact, not every person who becomes a manager in an organization is automatically considered a leader. Leadership involves the use of power and influence to engage others. In contrast, management is the process of attaining organizational goals through the functions of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So let's look at some of the differentiations between managers and leaders. First, managers have a role that is formally defined by the organization. In contrast, leaders' roles may be defined formally by the organization, but those roles are crystallized through followers. Managers are hired or promoted to perform the role by the organization, whereas leaders may be hired or promoted to perform the role by the organization, but their role may emerge over time. Managers seem to have more of a short-term perspective, whereas leaders have more of a long-term perspective. Managers overall value stability, organization, and efficiency, whereas leaders more value innovation, adaptability, and growth. Managers largely are more concerned with adherence to policies, procedures, and standards, whereas leaders are more concerned with transmitting a vision and meaning to employees. A manager directs employees, whereas a leader motivates employees. And managers may be very important in certain and stable environments, whereas leaders emerge and become more important in uncertain and unstable environments. So in summary, in talking about what is leadership, leadership is the use of power or influence to engage followers in the full range of activities that serve to accomplish the leader's vision and goals for the work unit. Leaders play important roles in organizations and have strong influences on their followers. There are distinct differences between managers and leaders. Managers serve to maintain complex operations within an organization, so that the organization does not turn into chaos. They typically focus on the functions of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling in order to meet organizational goals. Leaders, in contrast, focus on a vision for the future and develop strategies and arrangements to help motivate and inspire employee efforts to achieve that vision. Next, let's address the subject of where does leadership come from. Just because someone is in a known position of authority over others does not mean they engage in leadership. In fact, you can probably think of many experiences in your life where a designated leader was not able to influence followers in a positive direction. Moreover, there are many different reasons why leadership can emerge outside of the organization's formal hierarchy. Those alternative sources of leadership can be attributed to two factors. First, there are several types of power that can be used to influence others beyond a formal leadership position. And secondly, there are certain personal characteristics associated with the emergence of leaders. Now let's talk about the subject of power and influence. To understand how leaders can emerge outside of formal leadership positions, it is important to understand that the basis for leadership is power, which is defined as the ability to influence others and to resist the influence of others in return. Note, there is no requirement in this definition that power be rooted in a formal organizational position or role. In fact, there are a variety of reasons why someone might possess power. So let's talk about the 5 sources of power. First, we have legitimate power, which refers to the ability to influence others by virtue of holding a position in an organizational hierarchy. Holders of legitimate power are given authority to direct the job-related activities of others within some defined set of boundaries: a work group, a team, a department, a functional area, a store, a facility, a business unit, or even the entire organization. Secondly, we have reward power. This refers to the use of resources to influence others. People with reward power are able to influence others because they have control over resources that can be used to create incentives for others to engage in desired behaviors. Thirdly, we have the concept of coercive power. Coercive power is derived from control over resources or from authority that may be used to punish people. The basis of influence for someone who relies on coercive power is fear. A person with expert power possesses important knowledge, skills, or expertise uniquely important to others. The basis of influence for expert power is that others need the knowledge, skills, or expertise of that person to solve problems or to accomplish work. Finally, the 5th source of power is what is referred to as referent power. Referent power refers to the ability to influence others because of affection, admiration, or loyalty. People with referent power influence others because others identify with them and what they are trying to accomplish. Now let's talk about the subject of applying power. It is important to point out that leaders do not typically rely on only one source of power to influence followers. Part of the reason why this is true is because the sources of power are related to one another. Leaders may find themselves in situations where they have to apply sources of power that have been shown to be less effective. Fortunately, as shown in Table 2, which you can see on your screen, actually, now you see Table 2 on your screen. Fortunately, as you see in Table 2 on your screen, there are guidelines that can be followed to enhance the effectiveness of all types of power. First, how do you go about using legitimate power? One of the important rules to follow here is to be polite and clear when making a request. Provide explanations for requests in a calm and respectful tone, and do not exceed your authority. How do you go about applying reward power? First, identify rewards that are desired and fair. Next, ensure criteria for the rewards are understood and followed in an impartial way, and deliver the rewards promptly and as promised. How should you go about applying coercive power? Identify consequences for violations that are disliked, but are not excessive or inappropriate. Ensure the criteria for consequences and that the consequences themselves are understood and followed in an impartial and non-emotional way. And finally, deliver consequences promptly and as promised. How should you apply expert power? Provide a clear rationale and evidence to support request. Don't exaggerate the facts or overcomplicate the matter, and listen respectively to followers' concerns, but do act decisively in a crisis. Finally, how should you apply referent power? You should be sincere, supportive, and helpful. Be loyal when appropriate, and keep your promises. Next, let's talk about leader characteristics. Because power provides a direct means of influencing others, the possession of power plays an influential role in determining whether an individual emerges as a leader. However, there are also reasons to believe that leader emergence is driven by certain leader characteristics, which refer to relatively stable abilities and tendencies to think, feel, and behave in certain ways. Researchers have reached strong conclusions on a relatively small number of personal characteristics that are consistently related to leader emergence. These characteristics are listed and defined in Table 3, which you see on your screen. The first leader characteristic, cognitive intelligence, is defined as the ability to gather, interpret, and synthesize knowledge and information to solve problems and make decisions. Emotional intelligence is the ability to understand and control emotions in oneself and others to perform effectively in interpersonal situations. Extroversion. This is defined as the tendency to be social, assertive, positive, alert, and energetic. Openness is defined as the tendency to be creative, imaginative, unconventional, and independent. Conscientiousness, another leader characteristic, is the tendency to set high goals for oneself and to be perseverant and dependable in striving for those goals. Finally, core self-evaluation. This is defined as bottom line self-assessment of one's ability to be effective, to have self-confidence, and to feel in control over situations. Finally, let's talk about the subject of women in leadership. When thinking about the influence of individual characteristics on leadership, it is important to consider the striking disparity in the gender of powerful leaders. Indeed, it is well known that the vast majority of high-level leadership positions in business and politics are today held by men. The low percentage of women in leadership positions has been explained by role congruity theory, which suggests that individuals who belong to a group will be viewed negatively when the group is believed to possess characteristics that are incongruent with characteristics typically associated with a role held by or potentially held by a member of this group. Socialized beliefs that women tend to have qualities that are communal, meaning they're compassionate, caring, and sensitive, may result in the perception that women are ill-suited for leadership roles, which are believed to involve qualities that are more agentic, meaning assertive, competitive, and determined. As a consequence, women may receive fewer opportunities to advance and, in turn, to emerge as organizational leaders less often. Men and women are quite similar in their leadership styles. In fact, if there is a slight advantage, it may go to women, who have been found to be somewhat more visionary, inspirational, and forward-focused in their approach to leadership relative to men. Prejudice against women with respect to leadership roles is recognized as a serious problem today, and some organizations are trying to create a more inclusive culture with the help of additional training, education, and a focus on gender equality. So, in summary, leaders come in all shapes and sizes, and they can emerge from outside the organization's formal hierarchy. Leadership can be attributed to the power leaders use to influence others, which comes from sources beyond just a job title. Control over resources used to reward and punish others, expertise, or special personal qualities can all be used to influence others. A variety of personal characteristics can be associated with leaders. Those individuals who are cognitively and emotionally intelligent, and who are conscientious, extroverted, open to experience, and possess high core self-evaluations, have a greater tendency to emerge as leaders than those who do not possess these qualities. Men and women are quite similar in their leadership styles. However, on average, women have been found to be more visionary, inspirational, and forward-focused than men. Some organizations are trying to create a more inclusive culture today with the help of additional training, education, and a focus on gender equality. This ends the first of 3 parts on our lecture on leadership